Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Red Dot Forum Camera Talk. I am your co-host, David Farkas. I'm joined by Josh Lehrer.
Hello, everybody.
We've got Jose Rivera producing the show.
Hello, hello.
And Kirsten Vignes hanging out in the chat for you guys. So, last week, or 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, last episode.
Yes.
Last episode, we started diving into 15 years of Digital M.
And it was originally not planned to be a two-parter, but in typical David and Josh fashion, we talked a lot and only got about 60% of the way to the end of the line. So we have now decided at the end to break it into two parts. And here we are for part two, the latter half of the history, and of course, up until the present, of Leica's Digital M. Mm-hmm. So give us a very, very brief recap of last week. Where did we start and where did we end last week?
Well, we started at the very first Digital Leica, Digital Leica M, I should say, which was the M8. And that was introduced in 2006. And we worked our way through about 10 years worth.
Yeah.
Getting all the way up to, what, the M240?
No, we finished on the 246.
Oh, the 246.
Yeah, we did M240, MP. We finished on the second monochrome. Yeah,
right. Which was in 2015.
Yeah, so this episode will be starting post 246 monochrome and go all the way to what they're making now. So those are the questions that we'll be fielding, but really we're happy to answer whatever we can. So yeah, I say we should probably just dive into it. Right? Do you think?
Dive right in.
Everybody ready in the chat?
Let's see. Let's make sure everyone is
chilling. Everybody's saying hello.
Okay, there's a lot.
It's a bit different for us, kind of doing this continuation of something so linear, so we're just messing around. But we got a lot of good feedback from the last episode. I think a lot of people who came into Leica, maybe starting with the M10 or an MP240 or 246, didn't really understand how far Leica had to go to get to where we are now, or even where we were with the 246 or the MP240. You look at the M8, and you start to say, wow, they actually have done a lot.
They have.
For a company that's pretty small, in a world full of these powerhouse, ginormous camera companies, even I was pleasantly impressed and surprised once we kind of had everything together.
Yeah.
Because we don't normally have one of everything just sitting around.
How many cameras did we have here last time?
Like 30 or something. Yeah, we're less
crazy.
now, a little bit less.
We've thinned the herd a little bit.
Yes, to what's relevant, you know. But it was pretty special and humbling in a way to see so clearly that progress that Leica has made. And not only that, having discussions with people the following weeks from that episode about where the M8 and the M9 and the M240s, where they sit sort of in the pantheon of Leica Digital and how they're still relevant today and what they do differently. So
I think we have a little bit of a connection issue. One second here. Whoops, we're breaking up again. Hold on, guys. 1 second. We're going to take a look at that. Stream no good. Okay, we're going to stop talking for just a moment. 1 second. All right. Hopefully we're okay. Or are we still a little bit on the Lucy side?
I don't know. I only see us in real life. I don't see it.
Okay.
We're getting the stream.
Some people are saying it's good, and some people are saying it's a little slow. So we're trying to address that. Okay.
Sort of at the mercy of our internet provider for the most part.
Well, as long as we don't say cool every 120 seconds, it says.
I'm not going to guarantee that. I'm not going to guarantee that's not going to happen. I will make sure that David minimizes the it depends. Even that I can't guarantee.
We cannot guarantee anything.
Do we know if we're doing okay or what?
I don't know. Jose, how are we looking?
I think it's looking a little bit better now. Let's see what.
Let's give it a
Let us
shot.
know in the chat. Yeah, I think they're.
I guess we could just.
All right, good. Wanted to get through that before we got all crazy.
Better to happen now.
Yeah, just so you guys know,
Seems better. Okay.
we have considerably upped our internet game in the future because apparently to get a dedicated fiber connection, you have to wait 4 months or 3 or 4 months. So we have actually ordered that, and we're going to solve any connectivity issues that we're going to have in the future.
So by episode 40,
that's right,
we will be coming to you so clearly and so smoothly. You're gonna realize the whole time you actually didn't want to see us like that.
But today we're like pushing the very limits of what is possible. So bear with us.
Yeah, but definitely do let us know in the chat if we get weird, if we get choppy or whatever, because we count on that feedback to make sure we're coming in clear. So we've tangented.
Yep,
dramatically.
A little bit choppy. So we'll try not to move too much. Okay.
Yeah. I'm waving my hands really fast.
All right, what do we got now?
All right, so we are going to start where we left off. We left off at the 246 monochrome, and next would be the M type, I guess the
262?
Yeah.
The 262?
M type 262, which is right here. I will give that to you, Mr. Farkas.
Okay.
Nice.
Which feels really light without a lens or...
Well, there's probably not a battery.
There's no battery in it
Yeah.
either.
We can put one in there, though. I got one in the 240 here. Hang on. I only have a finite supply of batteries, people. Here we go. Nice. Okay. So, can we get our 262 slide, Jose, please? Somewhere in there. Hey, there it is. All right. 2015 was the launch. David, can we get it in focus, please? There it is. So, you want to talk about it or want me to talk about it?
We can talk a little about it. All right. So this was introduced in 2015. It ran about a 2-year production run to 2017. Now, versus the M Type 240, the 262 does have a quieter shutter mechanism. It does not have any live view. So in fact, they've replaced what was the live view button up here with a white balance button, kind of special for that addition. There is also, you'll notice, up here, there's no silver button because there's no video on this. And remember, I said it feels lighter, even with the battery in. It is 100 grams lighter than a standard M240 because the top plate is not brass. It's actually made out of machined aluminum. So it is a very lightweight package here. Very streamlined, no video, quieter shutter. A lot of people felt this was, just kind of a nicer M240.
Yeah, the 262, they only made it for, our slide says 2 years, but really I think solid production was probably quite a bit less than that. And they're very rare to see floating around. Some people I deal with people who are very familiar with the Leica and the history, they say, the what? Because they don't even remember it because it was almost like a blip on the radar in the Leica digital lineup. But the reality is it's all the benefits of the M240 with the simplicity of the M9.
Right.
No
When you say the benefits, you mean the sensor benefits.
The sensor benefits,
right.
yeah.
So
and
high ISO capability and
the smooth operation, the still very advanced menu, and of course the menu in the 262 is only 2 pages because they took out all the live view everything's. So it's really, really simplified. This is, if you don't need live view, of course you can't put on an EVF, right? There's no port for an EVF.
Yep.
The M262 actually has a unique hot shoe cover. The only one that uses this very, very specific hot shoe cover, which
show that.
If you're a nerd like me, is super interesting. Show them the close up there.
There you go.
And there it is. So that hot shoe cover is actually only for the 262 because it's the only 240 series of cameras, well, this and the next one we're going to show, that doesn't have live view, which means there's no ports for the EVF. So different hot shoe cover. Yeah, cool camera. Again, 240 sensor with a few other swaps. I guess
lighter, quieter, and
can we did we determine if we could do the noise reduction switch? Did you show us how to do that? Or no?
I didn't show him how to do it, but okay. I can certainly say.
Because we want to, you hear the shutter, but I know we have like this super cool noise reduction software. Because we get a lot of ambient sound and stuff in the office.
Dogs chewing.
Dogs chewing on things. He's sleeping right now.
We can try.
All right, we can try.
All right, so here we go. 500th of a second, the usual, right?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah, not as quiet. If you can't hear it, I can tell you, it's certainly a lot quieter than an M240. Not as quiet as the M10P, a newer super silent shutter. Sort of splits the difference. But at the time, it was significant because it was so much quieter.
Sure.
Any questions about the 262 before we move on?
Yeah, we have a few.
Oh, did we freeze again?
A little bit.
They're asking, can you talk about the M262? I heard it's the same sensor as the 240, but the improved processor makes a cleaner image.
No, the sensor in the 262 and the 240 are exactly the same. You're going to get the same exact image quality, same exact performance.
Oh, we're saying choppy again. Choppy again. Let's give it a second, guys. All right, we do apologize. Yeah, I'm watching it here. It's a little bit on the rough side.
I mean, as long as the audio is good, that's really the important part. Just put it on in your car and
It's a podcast.
just drift off to
visuals.
sleep with the soothing sound of our voices talking about hot shoe covers. We just got to power through. I think we'll be all right. People will survive.
All right, let's try it out.
Sorry, we're out of our control, and we got to keep going. So, yeah, it is. The 262 is an M240 sensor, same sensor. Now, if you shoot it and you think your pictures are better, maybe that's just because you're in a better mood that day. I don't know. But, I've shot it. I've never seen a difference between that and a regular 240 in terms of the results that come out off the sensor. So, for what it's worth, there you go. Okay. Now,
What about the viewfinder magnification?
0.68, same viewfinder as the M240. So all the other componentry in the 262 is the same as the 240. So same viewfinder, same magnification, all that stuff is the same. It's really just the lack of live view, video, simplified menu, quieter shutter, and the 100 grams lighter because of the aluminum top plate. Those are the differences, like the key differences. So it's like a simplified, super streamlined M240, and it was the tail end of the M240 production of that sort of generation. So kind of, but not really.
Last question is, in the field, is there any practical performance differences between them?
Well, if you're judging or your assessment of performance is image quality, no. Now, if you're shooting in an environment where a quieter shutter is necessary, that could help. If you're extremely weight conscious and 100 grams makes a difference, that could help. I don't know. I think it's more just about a simplified user experience.
Sure.
I don't think it's dramatically going to change the way you photograph.
And if you absolutely need to have a white balance, dedicated white balance button on there.
Yeah, it's a cool. It's just a cool part of the roadmap. I don't know. It's just like not a life-changing update, but something that you just don't see a lot and that we enjoy having around. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. Okay, next from the M262
Where do we go to
came
next?
the MD Type 262.
Oh.
We can get a slide for that. And David can show it.
Okay.
There it is.
I'll keep it without a lens first.
Yeah.
There we go. Ooh, pretty.
Here we go. So the back is the important part.
Oh, ready for the reveal?
That's right.
Well, I think first thing they'll notice is there's no red dot.
Right. So MP240 styling.
Yep,
only
we
came
got-
in black.
Classic Leica script right here.
Yep.
Very nice. But the big difference is there is no LCD screen.
That's right. This was first shown in the M Edition 60, which was a stainless steel M240 that didn't have a screen. And that was the limited edition of 600. And then the MD brought that into the production landscape where you actually had a production digital M with no screen. And in this case, no live view, no EVF capability, no nothing. This was very much like shooting film in terms of the experience, except of course it's digital.
Right. And they did repurpose this on kind of cool just like a throwback to a film Leica where you would have an ISO, at least indicator dial on the back. Or if it's a DX, or not a DX, but if it's a metered camera like an M7, that is an ISO dial in the back. So this is a functional ISO dial, which on the 240 generation, there is no dedicated ISO control on the camera. There's a button. So this is kind of neat that you can change your ISO very quickly with a manual control.
Yeah. So this is a couple of notes on the MD. It is based on the 240, not on the MP240. So it has, in terms of the guts, except it has the shutter of the 262, the M262. It's a little confusing because you have the M Type 262 and the MD Type 262.
A little bit.
So it's like you have to kind of think about it like this. Like the MD and the M262 are both M240s on the inside.
That's these two cameras.
Except they
here.
both have quieter shutters. M262 is lighter. MD262 is brass, so it's the same weight as an MP240, except it has no screen on it. So
Right.
both kind of like very short production run. Let me get a close up to that. Oh, let me drop
Flip
it.
that around there.
Here we go. There we go. They're limited production run cameras you just don't see often showing up, on pre-owned or on trade-in. But we would be, of course, remiss if we didn't discuss them. And the changes that Leica made on these two models, the small improvements and enhancements, show up later in a more mainstream fashion. So it is important to discuss these cameras, not just for what they are in and of itself, but also why those changes were important. So,
All right.
yes. I think we get to the big one.
Are we
After this.
are we at the big
Yeah,
one
we're
yet?
at the big guns.
All right.
What
here we
came
go.
next, Mr. Farkas?
We have one quick question,
Sorry, we're like
For sure.
ignoring everyone. Yeah.
but David, I'm sure you can refer him to the article. Javier is asking, what was the difference between the CCD on the M9 and the CMOS sensor?
They're different technology.
Yeah.
So you have CCD is a bit of a older technology. CMOS is a newer technology. We can all thank Canon for bringing CMOS to us. They didn't invent it, but prior to its introduction in Canon cameras, the CMOS sensor was actually only used it was very, very low quality and only used for industrial applications like barcode scanning and things. And Canon said, we think we can make that technology a lot better if we invest billions of dollars into it.
Yeah.
And they did.
Shocking.
And it is.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what every major camera on the market, yes, I know not Foveon, but
Right.
every major camera on the market
Yeah.
that's not Foveon based, like a Sigma camera,
Yeah.
use a CMOS sensor
David-
across the board.
And David has as he's talked about several times on the show, and we featured in the last episode of the show, a very comprehensive 3-part Red Dot Forum article, really diving into how much differences are there between CCD and CMOS in terms of, is there a CCD look?
Right.
Is it replicable from in post-processing, et cetera, et cetera? Short story is, CCD is the past, CMOS is the present. And
Right.
for now, the future, until some new game-changing technology
Yeah, and the
out.
reality is, if you want to make CMOS look like CCD, you can. Mainly, it's just a contrast difference because CMOS has so much more dynamic range than CCD does. So you basically have to crush the shadows and crush the highlights a bit. And, there is some nuance in terms of the color science, but that's not so much the sensor as in the decisions that Leica made, or I should say at the M9 level, the decisions that Leica made in conjunction with their technology partner, Yanoptic, in terms of what the color science would look like. Because I think there's more of the look difference is in the processing in the camera versus the actual sensor itself. Because I've had these conversations with the head of R&D at Leica, and people want the CCD look, and he just had this quizzical look on his face. He's like, I don't know, what do you mean a CCD look?
Yeah.
I said, like an M9. He says, well, we could just make it more contrasty and change the colors a little bit. So, even they realize that it's not CCD, CMOS dependent. I know that's really that is the perception. That is a very widely held perception.
But I will say this, just to summarize this the other way.
Sure.
Certainly, if your objective is to get the most contrasty, punchy file straight out of the camera, I know not everyone is super Lightroom geeks like we are, and I have to accept that, even though it drives me crazy sometimes.
Yeah.
Yes, the M9 and the CCD cameras do give you that.
It's kind of like, it reminds me of like Ektachrome.
Yeah, it's like
Right.
shooting Ektachrome versus shooting,
Portra.
Yeah, thank you.
It's very much the same thing.
Negative. So it's like a slide versus a negative.
Right.
A negative film is much flatter. Slide film is much punchier,
But the latitude.
Right, you have a lot more latitude. So do you want to have less control, less latitude, but less work to get a certain look? Or do you want to have more control, more latitude, but you have to actually do a little bit of work to get it?
And
where you
along
want?
those lines, that's why I have a Lightroom preset for Leica article.
Yeah.
If you import everything with the preset, I also like a punchy look. I like a more,
That's an understatement.
Yeah, that is.
If you've ever downloaded David's presets, they are intense.
They might be a little too much for portraits.
Yeah. They're great for landscape, though.
Yeah, I mainly shoot landscape and travel kind of stuff. So I do really like those rich kind of slide-like saturated images.
And we'll talk more about post-processing, and we're going to revisit Lightroom at some point and in a different way. So stay tuned for that. So yes, that. Any other questions? I don't want to
Just one.
Yes.
On the 262, how much can I push the ISO of the MD 262?
Well, I mean, the 260 MD and M240 MP, they're all the same sensor. So the performance you got on an M240 from 2012 is the same performance you would get on an MD 262 from 2017, meaning it only goes up to ISO 6400. You're not going any higher than that.
We cut out.
Oh,
Just a sec.
are we totally out, or are we just
Yeah,
laggy?
When it spins like that, it's out.
Well, it's okay.
Apologies again, guys. I see that we're cutting out just a little bit here, so we're just going to hit the pause button for a second.
Okay.
Wait for the old internet.
Oh, wait, is that the problem? Is it Comcast?
Yep.
Nice. I mean, generic internet provider B. Sorry, I'm not allowed to say these things.
Yep, and I'm seeing a lot of people saying video stop.
Great.
Okay.
We're trying.
We are.
We're at the mercy of the internet people, just like everyone else watching this, I suppose. Can we do anything?
We start and stop it again.
I want to do that.
Hope for the best.
Are we going now?
How are we looking, Jose? Wow, that good, huh?
Can we lower
Super.
Can we lower our whatever thingy?
I think we've already tried that. Wow. There's some serious stuff going on. Do.
We're just chilling.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. Talk amongst yourselves.
Try to
get
figure
some
out-
questions in.
Yeah, I mean, certainly if you can hear us, keep putting stuff in the chat, because we are going to do our best to get to everything that shows up.
If it shows up.
I need hold music, something. Nah,
Do,
nah,
do,
nah.
do,
I'm afraid of
do,
anything
do.
that I hum will be licensed, and we'll get banned
Oh
from
yeah,
YouTube. So
for sure.
I can't do that. Oh, the internet! What a place.
What a place.
Anything on your end that you can see?
I'm just checking out.
Type in more things.
Type in more
Just
things.
typing. You're not typing enough.
Okay.
Now we're looking over here. Super good. Fine here. Julie says fine.
Fine.
We're getting
fine.
mixed messages from people here. Somebody say in the chat, is it good or not? I need to know. We need to hire someone to sit outside the studio and just watch this on real time, and then just knock on the door. 3 knocks for good, 2 knocks for bad.
It's a code.
Yeah, exactly. Something very sophisticated like that.
Yeah, we're all right. We should be up. Let's see. What was everyone saying? Oh no, someone said Enzo peed on the wire. I don't actually think that happened. Enzo's a good boy.
He's a good dog like that.
He's a good boy. He's a good boy. Yeah, unfortunately not 1998 internet. Unfortunately, it's 2021 internet, which is why it's doing this.
Yeah.
Too many Zoomers. That's the problem.
I guess we just keep going.
Yeah, let's power through.
Okay. We were talking about ISO performance. So yes, M240 sensor, which is in the MD262 and the M262, topped out at 6400. I think you're like any other discussion we've had about high ISO performance, it's your comfort level. 1600, 3200 is fine. I don't know.
I think 3200 is good.
Yeah, I don't have any real issues with that.
Yeah, 3200 on the 240 generation, I think is not just acceptable. It's very, very good.
Yeah.
I have lots and lots of images at 3200 that, I put on a wall. I'm happy with them.
There you go. Okay, so
the big thing.
did anything pop up in the chat? Questions in this strange times?
Taking a look here. People say it's looking a little better.
Hey, Mauricio's here. Hi, Mauricio. And Mark is here.
All right.
Everybody's here. Kelly's here. Hi, Kelly. I'm only going to say your name if your name's in your username. If your username is like something ambiguous, I'm not going to.
Yeah, people are saying frame rate is like 10 FPS or something. This is pretty awful.
Well, we have to either keep going or stop, and I vote for keep going. So,
well, we can actually. I have an idea.
What is your idea?
we're just gonna pause the stream for real quick. Don't go anywhere, and we're just gonna restart it with a little bit different settings, a little less, and that should fix it.
Okay.
So,
Are we doing that?
Jose. So yeah, if you just wanna,
Can we pause it?
yeah, we're gonna pause the stream. So we'll be right back, guys. Do not go anywhere. All right, are we back?
Mm-hmm.
I think we're back.
Okay.
Let's see. All right. Hello. Welcome.
Are we back?
I think we're back, and I
Okay.
think we're smoother.
Okay.
All right. Please let us know in the chat if you think we have addressed the issue.
Man, we are just
Woo.
we're crushing it right now.
Yeah, so good. So good.
Whew. Okay, so sorry about that. We're trying our best. We're back. Let's do it. Let's do it, people.
Let's
Boom
do
goes
it.
the dynamite.
Boom goes the
No,
dynamite.
no one's gonna get that reference. I do though.
I do.
Gabe gets it if he's watching.
All right,
Okay,
everyone.
so
I'm seeing all good now, so
we've
thanks for sticking with
covered
us.
just a quick recap. We covered M262, MD262. Jose's hands are up. Use your words. It's okay.
Check. YouTube, it's fine.
Can we check YouTube?
Yeah, looks good.
Got another reminder. All right.
We're all hands on deck right now. All
Yeah,
right,
we're looking good.
We're,
We're looking good.
gonna power through.
All right, everyone says it's smooth and looking
Okay.
good.
So yes, MD and M262, same sensor, same performance as the M240 in terms of image quality. Hopefully that puts that question to bed. If not, please keep asking, and I'm happy to help.
And again, just to reiterate, the 240 generation is excellent up to ISO 3200.
Yes. Okay. So now,
Big change.
what we're going to talk about next is really what I would say the evolution of Leica's current state, right? Because we're going to get into the M10 and the M10 generation cameras.
Yes.
So if you have an M10 or a variant of that camera, or you're thinking about it, now is the time to start paying attention and taking notes. If you haven't been already, I'm watching you.
And start getting your questions in.
Yes, because we're really going to try to dive into what the last 4 years of M10 and M10 family has meant for Leica and how the improvements have come over the past 4 years. So, David, what happened 4 years ago? Almost to date, actually. Like 4 years ago, it was January 17th, I think.
It was.
We had a camera who is, where is it? Right here. I'm going to take this lens off. Boom.
Apparently we're choppy.
Just keep
yet
going.
again.
Just keep going.
Keep going.
We're not
Okay.
stopping.
Not that one.
Okay. What are you looking for?
I'm just looking for a body cap because it makes me uncomfortable.
Ah, okay. Of all the things that make you uncomfortable,
Yes.
no lens caps? Okay. All right. Jose, can we get the slide for the M10? Please.
Oh, and we gotta wipe that off.
Wait, is there a fingerprint on there?
There's a
Didn't we
fingerprint.
just clean all these things?
We did. We did.
We're all gonna have to wear gloves going forward. All right, 2017 January. That was, I remember that day very, very well. The launch of a new M. Anytime a new M comes out, if you work at a Leica store like we do, it's a big deal, obviously. So here it is, the M10.
The M10.
What did they do, David? What did they do?
Well, they changed the nomenclature for one. I mean, this is the most important thing, right?
Yes.
So they went, instead of it being an M type something, this is now just an M10. That's, I mean, clearly nothing else matters besides that. So we kind of jumped from the M9 to the M10, even though there was an entire generation of cameras between the M9 and the M10. We've got a brand new 24 megapixel CMOS sensor. Okay, and the big change, so not just the new sensor, because we say it's the same resolution, is the thickness of the body. So from here to here.
I'm gonna take off. It's not like a hot shoe cover.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep, try harder.
You gotta do it for me. I can't do it. You can. We'll show this later.
No problem.
All right, it's thinner. That's where we left off. There you
Yes,
go. Looks good.
much
Looks
thinner.
good. Yes.
So the distance between here and here, okay, is 4 millimeters thinner than the 240 generation, which is now the same dimensions as a film M, an M7 or an MP, which is what a lot of people wanted. But this was quite the magic engineering trick, because it took a lot of doing to get everything in the body to still sit flush without having the screen stick out in the back, and to make sure the sensor was adequately cooled and all the electronics were in there. So it's quite a feat of engineering. Some of the other things, obviously, if we go back to the close-up here. Okay, we have a... Okay, there we go. We have a physical ISO dial.
This is a big one because short of the MD Type 262, which had the ISO wheel on the back, this is the first time we've had a truly, I'll call it a mechanical switch, although it's not actually mechanical, but a standalone dedicated ISO adjustment wheel that you can use when the camera's on, you can use when the camera's off. So now all three major exposure variables on the M10 and from there are available at your fingertips while the camera is off or on or whatever. Aperture on the lens, shutter speed on the shutter speed dial, and ISO on the ISO dial. So this is the first time you've really had all those settings, all those metrics at your fingertips. You could look down at the camera and instantly know all of your exposure settings. So that was another big change that we saw with the M10. In some ways, just to go back in time a little bit, the difference between the M9 and the M240 I see as actually greater in some ways than the M240 and the M10, in the sense that it was really a huge shift from CCD to a live view CMOS sensor and a much more modern interface. So while the M10 in some ways doesn't seem quite as significant, it's, to me, a lot of smaller changes, but more importantly, it's the changes to the core architecture of the rangefinder.
Yep, that happened too.
Because we didn't really see in the era of digital M's, we didn't see a lot of changes to the rangefinder other than changes in optimal focusing distance, which we got lambasted for screwing up last time. But now we actually have, which Dave is going to talk about, a fundamental change to the way the rangefinder is configured. So tell us a little bit tell us a little bit about what changed in the M10's rangefinder.
Sure. So if you take a look, let's put two cameras.
If you take a look, that's the Jim thing. I hope he's watching.
I hope not.
Oh, fair point.
Let me put these as close together as I can.
You need a hand.
It's going to be a little awkward, but here we go.
There you go.
What isn't?
Right. You're holding two M10s, right?
Yeah, that's even more
I'm
awkward.
like, you want a 240? Here's a 240 here.
Give me a 240.
Okay. We are doing fabulous right now. I want you to know that.
So the first thing to notice,
other than more fingerprints.
Those are
Jose's fingerprints, though.
Yeah. So the 240, you'll notice, has a little bit smaller eye opening there. Whoops. Yeah.
That right there.
Yes. Versus the M10. So it's a larger eye cup, or what do they call it? An exit pupil?
Well, first of all, you're out of focus. There you go. I'm closer to the monitor.
Yes, you are.
So, yes, the actual diameter of the eyepiece, what you look into, for the first time ever, has been increased. Because if you were to use any viewfinder threaded accessory on an M240 or older, whether it be a diopter, a magnifier, an angle finder, or one of the Match Technical eye cups, they're all going to work from the M3 or the M4 all the way to the M240. That diameter was exactly the same. Now, that was nice because you had this incredible capability and compatibility across a huge generation of cameras, but at a certain point, it was inevitable that if Leica wanted to improve the rangefinder experience on the M10, they had to pull the Band-Aid off and make that eyepiece larger.
Well, and they had to make some fundamental changes. In order to make the camera thinner, they had to optically change it anyway. So they're kind of, there's two things here, right? To make the camera thinner and to improve the optical rangefinder experience. And I guess they had the opportunity to do it because it had to be done. And it's significantly better. You have a more eye relief and a larger viewfinder magnification.
So yeah, it's a 50% improvement in eye relief, meaning how far your eye has to be away from the viewfinder to get the full image, which is great for glasses wearers like us, where we're always trying to press up our glasses as close to the viewfinder as you can to see it. And it's 30% larger. So it is a physically larger view. The frame lines are the same, that hasn't changed, but they just increase that size. So it makes it easier to see the frame lines, easier to see everything you're looking at, and easier for glasses wearers to see everything because you have more eye relief. They also changed the viewfinder magnification. Every single digital M prior to the M10 was a 0.68x magnification viewfinder. Previous to that, you had 0.72 was the standard. Now, if you watch our analog M episode, we talked about 0.91 and 0.85 and 0.58. That's the film days. They don't do that in digital. With the M10, you went from a 0.68 to a 0.73. So what does that mean in practice?
Well, first of all, that's extraordinarily close, let's call it almost exact, of what a standard film Leica M experience is, which is 0.72. So that means that it's going to be a little less wide and a little more normal. 0.72 is very well suited to 35, 50 shooting. The 0.68 is maybe slightly better for 28 and 35 than it is for 50. So that's kind of the weighting, I would say.
Yeah.
Leica went, I think everything they did was to try to make the M10 as much of a digital film camera experience as they could. Because you have the same dimensions, you have almost the same viewfinder specs, although it is an actually better viewfinder than what's on the M7, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, this is just to interrupt, in my opinion, having used everything at this point, the M10 and M10 variants has the best rangefinder of any Leica camera ever made.
Yeah.
Now, some people may say, well, I like a 0.58 better. That's not what I mean. What I mean is the quality and the viewing experience and the focusing experience of the M10 rangefinder. To me, if you've had an M9 for 10 years and you upgrade to an M10 and you look through the viewfinder, you're going to immediately notice the difference.
Sure.
It's going to be significant for sure. Or a 240, either one. Yeah, how are we doing on the...
We're still choppy.
Yeah, well, we'll keep going. It's okay. If besides, they can always watch it later on the...
I think it's going to be choppy then too.
Well, that's fine. Maybe I'm just like that way in real life. So even though the M10 has new electronic features, new functionality, to me, the ISO dial and the improvement in the rangefinder, which are fundamental improvements to the mechanical, really bare bones aspect of the M10, are huge. And then, of course, you have a brand new sensor with significantly improved ISO performance over the M240, and some would say closer in some ways to the M9 look out of camera.
A little bit, because they heard, they listened, right?
Yeah.
So it was that, you think people want that? Okay, we'll do that.
Yeah. Ask
So-
and you shall receive.
But it doesn't sacrifice the dynamic range because the M10 has even more dynamic range
Yes.
than the 240 generation.
Yes.
Almost 3 or 4 stops of shadow recoverability at base
Yeah.
ISO.
Yeah.
Which is very impressive. And the color out of it, that kind of look and the renderings of the reds, blues, and the shadow and highlight tonality are, I would say, a pretty good blend between the M9 and the 240.
Yeah.
Where it has that malleability and smoothness of the 240, but it has a little bit more of that punch and saturation of the M9.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's just the hardware and the sensor. Then, of course, we've got Wi-Fi, which is the first time we've seen Wi-Fi in a digital M, which gives you the ability to control the camera wirelessly with the Leica Photos app and also download images from the camera to your iOS or Android device. Handy. I just like it as a wireless viewfinder / cable release functionality. Even that alone makes that worth it. So certainly a nice feature as well. Any questions? I'm like talking
Yep.
and I'm like getting into it and I'm ignoring everyone.
Can you explain the focus button on the M10?
Yeah. We've talked about this a few times, but I'm happy to cover it. The 240 introduced 240. This second button on the front of the camera. Let me get the close up and I'll show you.
There you go.
Here we go. Focus assist button, and they carried that on into the M10. I'll just keep the close up here, and I'll grab a M10. Here we go. Right here. So this button, what this button does is when you're in live view, it activates your various focus assist functions. So if you've got, here we go. If you have, why is it out of focus? There we go. If you have focus peaking or focus assist enabled, but you have it on manual, meaning the focus assist is on manual, you tap this button and it will magnify the live view and activate the focus peaking. I honestly don't use this button very much with M lenses because I do have my focus assist set to automatic, meaning as soon as you turn the focusing ring on your rangefinder lens, your M lens, it will magnify the live view. But if you have an adapted R lens, for example, or anything that's not a rangefinder coupled M lens, you're not going to be able to use the automatic focus assist because there's nothing telling the rangefinder cam that the lens is being focused because it relies on that mechanical connection between the rangefinder lens and the camera to do automatic magnification. That's where this button comes in handy because certainly using an R lens, let's say, with an adapter, you're going to want to magnify and activate your focus assist to, well, assist you in focusing. And then in that case, you would be tapping this button quite a lot because you do want to frequently be magnifying and then going back to full view during live view. So that works the same on the M240 as it does on the M10. Hopefully that answers your question. That's a good question because that button just kind of hanging out and you're like, what is that doing there? So there we go. More questions, Jose.
Yeah, question from Lewis. How do you compare the quality of the MP Finder to the M10?
M10 Finder is better, in my opinion. MP Finder is a 0.72, almost the same as the M10. I like the M10 Finder better. It's bigger. Because remember, the MP has the same finder as, in terms of the diameter of the eyepiece and the eye relief, as an M240, basically. Whereas the M10 has all those enhancements we just talked about. So I think the M10 over everything has the best viewfinder overall. Again, it's not a 0.58, I get it, but yeah.
We have a question here from earlier also. Do lens performance varies on each camera sensor, not in terms of more megapixels, but in terms of corner performance?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
I mean, I suppose that with each generation of digital M, they're optimizing their micro lenses.
Yeah, I mean, they do continue to tweak that. Obviously, it started with the M9 that they used offset micro lenses, so they would actually be shifted further away from the center to catch the rays of light. Then with the 240 generation, they used what I call the cone head style, where they're very conical. So most, I don't know if you can actually see that, most micro lens structures on pretty much every other digital camera is sort of like a flat raindrop style. And Leica made these very cone-looking things that would catch the light rays and direct them down, which was pretty cool. And then the M10, they just took it further. So with each generation, they are improving it.
Yeah, I would say, I guess, sure. That's a good question. I know I haven't thought about it as much as I would have thought about it. Because you kind of just take for granted that the new cameras are so much better.
Yeah, in every measure.
So I think it's not so different that alone would be a reason to upgrade from, let's say, an M240 to an M10, just because you want your particular lens to perform better. There's a lot of other reasons, but that may be like number 17 or something. But that was actually a really good question, and probably one that I could test with an M240 and an M10 because they're the same resolution. I'll have to try like a very demanding lens, like a 50 Apple or something.
But it'd have to be really wide.
True, like a 21 Summilux. That would be a good test.
Or an 18.
Or an 18. Well,
I'd say.
Can't get those anymore, so.
But we could still use it. Or a 21 Super L Mark.
So that's actually a really good question, and one that I think could use some more testing for me to give you an answer that actually is accurate. Although just from my experience, I would say, again, that alone is not a reason to switch from like an M240 to an M10. There's a lot of reasons to do it, but that's not in my top 10.
Yeah, because, an M10, when we talk, a lot of people say, but it's the same resolution, right? 24 megapixel,
Yeah.
24 megapixel.
Yeah.
Why do I need to go from one 24 megapixel camera to another 24 megapixel camera? I don't care if it's 4 millimeters thinner. Okay, do you care about this? On an M240, you can go comfortably up to 3200 ISO. On an M10, you can go comfortably up to 10,000 ISO.
There you go.
And that's almost 2 stops ISO improvement and low light improvement. So if you're going out and doing night photography or indoor photography or available light of any measure, it just opens up creative possibilities that you just don't have on an M240, which is already pretty decent at 3200.
Yeah.
And then compare that to an M9 generation where you're maxing out at 1000 ISO.
Yeah.
So we can see that generational leap, each one becoming more useful under more conditions.
Yeah, that's fair. And I want to mention another really important change that they started with the M10 and of course have continued is compatibility with the VisaFlex. Now, the M-Type 240 being the first digital rangefinder with live view gave you the ability to use the EVF2 electronic viewfinder, which was this little guy right here. Get a close up of that, hopefully. EVF2 was fine. It wasn't going to change your life, although it was pretty nice to actually be able to see the live view at eye level, and it tilted, and there's a sticker on it, sorry. Had a little button to activate it right here. It worked, right? It worked, but keep the close up. The M10 gives you the ability to use the VisaFlex. Still tilts. There we go, like that. The VisaFlex has 3 changes. Number 1, it's considerably higher performance, meaning the resolution is higher and the refresh rate is higher. So it's a much more modern EVF experience. Number 2, it has integrated GPS. So you can actually geotag your images using the GPS module that's built into the VisaFlex. Number 3, and perhaps most convenient of all, is it has, you can't really see it in here, it has an eye sensor. So instead of the EVF2 that requires you to press a button every time you wanted to actually use it, this can sense when your eye is up to the VisaFlex and automatically switch. So for me, if you are enjoying using the VisaFlex, whether it's with super wide angles, the Noctilux, or adapted lenses for sure, that switchover alone is a game changer. Because the EVF2 is okay, but the VisaFlex is leagues and leagues and leagues better than the EVF2. So VisaFlex compatibility to me is one of my top 10 reasons to switch from an M240 to an M10.
Well, and you mentioned the other functionality of the VisaFlex 020, right?
The geotagging?
Yeah.
I did say that.
Oh, okay, good.
You pay
Good, good,
attention?
good.
You didn't do too much technical stuff over there.
All right. Yeah, the
There will be a
GPS,
test later.
the GPS functionality is really neat, especially if you're doing travel.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it's not really that in the way because it sits on the top of the camera. It doesn't really get in my way when I'm using it. What I'll say is this. When I go out with an M10 or a variant of the M10, the VisaFlex is in my bag 100% of the time. I may not always use it. I may not. But I do always have it with me. Now, I do want to give the viewers at home a helpful trick that I like to use, like a little bit of a setting trick. If I can find an M10 with a battery in it. That one, maybe. Let's see.
Heavy?
Yes. All right. So one of the things that I don't like, this is an M10P, perfect. What I don't like about the VisaFlex, ironically, is the eye sensor, only because the default behavior, if I can get a close-up shot, Jose, there's me looking super wide. The default behavior is it's got live view on the screen, and as soon as you hold your eye up, I'm going to pretend my finger is my eye. You can see the VisaFlex is now activated. But there is a very slight delay in that time. I also don't like having the screen on all the time, especially if I'm using the VisaFlex a lot and just want to maintain the live view in the VisaFlex. So what I do, pardon me here while I figure out the menu, is I go into the menu here and I go to, I'm going to do this backwards. It's going to happen. EVF display control. Okay. Nope. I'm going to get it. I'm doing this backwards. Here we go. And I go to LV screen target. What this means is, where is the live view going to show up? If I do auto, that means it will use the eye sensor on the VisaFlex to determine where live view is going to be, on the screen or on the VisaFlex. If I change that to EVF, what that means is, I'm just going to set that with the set button. I'm going to half press the shutter. Now, you can see actually the VisaFlex is on even without my eye being up to it. This is almost like using an SL or an SL2 now, because now live view is permanently in the VisaFlex and will never come on the screen unless you take the VisaFlex off the camera, and then you can see it reverts to the camera's live view. So if you do use the VisaFlex a lot on the M10, M10P, M10R, any of those cameras, you can go into the menu. I'll do it one more time. Into EVF display control. Here we go. Crap. Nope. I'm gonna get it. There we go. And change your LV screen target to EVF if you want to have live view always in the VisiFlex when the VisiFlex is attached. This is just a little top tip for everybody watching. So that's what the screen should look like. Okay.
Screenshot that.
Yes, just a little tip because I give this out all the time individually, so now I can finally tell everyone at the same time.
Okay.
Moving on.
Moving on.
There's so much to cover, so we're going to keep going.
Plow through it.
After the M10,
Yes.
we had the camera that I'm actually holding in my hand, which I will, well, you can put the lens on it.
Thank you.
We should wipe the screen off first. It's all
Okay.
now.
I'll take the lens off though.
Yeah.
Just a quick question, Josh.
Yeah.
Will I do my housekeeping here?
Yes. And does the M10 Live View give you a monochrome option?
Yes,
Yes,
you
it does.
can. You can do that. So
I'll show on this one.
if you set your JPEG setting, regardless of whether you're shooting JPEG or not, to monochrome, the live view and playback will be monochrome. Keep in mind, though, the DNG files will be color out of camera, meaning when you import them into Lightroom, they will not be black and white. So it's only in camera are they black and white.
Yep. You want me to show that?
Yeah. So go to,
I've got it here.
you got it. Okay. There we go. Yep. There. Perfect. Looks good.
Okay. So you'll see in main menu, right at the top there, you've got JPEG settings. You go in there, scroll down. At the bottom, you see monochrome. Set that to on. And even though you're shooting in, if you're shooting in DNG only, I just took the lens off, but I'll put the lens back on so you can see. So just to make sure we are shooting this in, yeah, I just want to demonstrate. Okay, we've got that set to DNG only. As you can see, I've got file format, DNG. And if I push for live view right here, you will notice that I am in black and white.
There you go.
Josh is in black and white. Okay, but the resulting files are still color, like Josh said.
Yeah. So, but that is how you get live view in black and white. If you're using the focus peaking function, it's pretty cool because it does allow you to very clearly see where the peaking is.
Because the peaking will show outlines in either red or green or
Yeah.
whatever you've chosen.
All right, can we get Jose the M10P slide, please?
Do.
Aha.
There it is.
All right. So current, kind of. I guess I don't know if they're actually still making M10Ps, but you can still get new ones. I know that. All right. Do you want to go over the features? Or do you want me to do it?
Sure, I'll go over it.
All right.
All right. So introduced, 2018. Not that long ago. We're coming up into
Doesn't
the current
feel
age.
like that long.
It really doesn't, no, but in like dog years or
Yeah.
something like that. So it's still got the same 24 megapixel CMOS sensor that's in the M10. There's no difference in terms of image quality. But a big difference is Leica, again, introduced an ultra quiet shutter, but this one is really quiet. It also introduced on the back side here, looks like the same screen, but it is a touch screen now. So that's not going to be really affecting anything except playback. When you're using playback, you can swipe through the images, you can double tap to zoom in. It's very handy, especially if you're used to using a Q or an SL.
Well,
or
let me interrupt and say, it actually, well, for live view, the touchscreen is extremely handy because you can drag around the image while it's zoomed in during live view.
That's true too.
You can
Yep.
double tap where you want. So don't listen to him. It's also very good for live view. He just doesn't use the touchscreen very much. So, you know, I do because all the testing that I do in the store when I'm testing lenses for lens episodes, and I have to constantly be zooming in and out on lenses, especially ones that are older, I'm always tapping the screen to zoom in and out. So super, super, super handy. No lens mounted.
Nope. Let's put that lens back on. All right, and to demonstrate the level gauge, I need to have live view on.
Yeah. Right. So we talked about two features so far: the quiet shutter and the touchscreen. The third one, as David is showing you now,
You see that green line?
the M240
right there.
had a virtual horizon. They took it away in the M10 for reasons unknown, and we got it back on the M10P. And there it is. So there's that line. There it
I'm
is.
trying to get focus, but also give a dark enough background to see it.
I
There
can see
you go.
it. Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so you can see that if I tilt, you'll see that the virtual horizon turns red in either direction. And once I'm squared up, it will turn green. And then you can see it also gonna go Oh, it screen dimmed. There we go. Yeah, so it just helps you find level.
Yeah,
basically.
if you're shooting landscape or architecture, this is nice. Also nice if you're doing like an overhead Hail Mary type of shot and you can't actually see. You can just look at that level and know if you're, you can't see my hand, but you can know if your shot is level or not. So we got, again, quieter shutter.
Yep.
Touchscreen, spirit level, virtual horizon, whatever. Of course, we got the P cosmetics, so no red dot.
Yep, we got a
The
close up on
Leica
that.
script lettering on the top plate. There you go.
There you go.
And another small, but
Here's the standard one.
yeah. Oh yeah, good point. Show them the difference. There you go. And show them the back. You need to like redo your hands a little bit.
I do.
You can see the difference, very subtle in the engravings there, where it doesn't say Leica Camera Vetzlar anymore, because that's on the top. One of the other very small changes, but appreciated in the M10P, was they gave you a color-matched brass hot shoe cover, which seems minor, but it's actually really, really nice.
Close up there.
There we go. It's solid brass. They make them in silver and black, and you can buy these separately. And if you have a regular M10 or M10 monochrome or one of the other cameras that comes with this little plastic one, wherever that one went, say it on the close-up, Jose. So this is the one that you get with all the other models. It's just plastic, which is fine. This segues perfectly into,
Yeah, I'll show
I like to show, new things that we carry, right?
Oh.
When we have that show. And this is a small one, but relevant, is Match Technical, the company that makes Thumbs Up and the Q rubber caps, a lot of stuff we've showed on air, has offered a new product. It's very tiny. This is a solid brass M10 hot shoe cover. So it's an alternative to the M10P hot shoe cover. It's right about the same price. And this one's a bit worn, but you can actually see it does brass. Of course, you won't see that when it's on the camera, but this is painted black. It's very similar to the finish of the lenses. I'll put it on a camera so you can see it. Hold on. Here we go. So you can see it's very close to the lens finish. It's got like a nice little sort of bumpy part. It sits really tight, really nicely. It's not that hard to take out. It's called the ASC-M10. I'll show you the back here. There it is, ASC-M10. M10 hot shoe cover by Match Technical. Usually I'm showing these like crazy things. This to me seems quite practical. This is way nicer than the plastic hot shoe cover you get with all the M's other than the M10P. And certainly if you're not using the VisiFlex a lot and you want to protect those contacts, this is a nice way to do it. So ASC-M10, new gadget from Match Tech. Very, very nice.
Cool.
Sweet.
All right.
Okay, we just randomly tangent it, but let's pause,
It's okay.
take some questions.
I've
If there are any.
been looking at questions.
Jose,
Yep.
All right. Does the GPS of the VisiFlex work on the M10D as well?
it does.
It does.
M10D has full VisiFlex capability, which we'll get to.
But we're not there yet.
Not
We're
there
jumping the
yet.
gun.
We're close.
No questions about the M10D yet. Not allowed.
All right. A question from Rick. Can you set up an M240 with EVF2 so that the live view is off like on the M10?
M240 with EVF. Yeah, well, the
just push the
difference is
button.
because it has a button. So because it doesn't have the eye sensor, so it only works that way.
Right. You just push the button and
Yeah.
it activates the
Yeah.
EVF and it activates live view simultaneously.
Exactly. Next.
Why didn't the M10 get the perspective distortion update?
Because you need to have the virtual horizon tool,
Level gauge.
the level gauge, to do it. And the M10, as I mentioned, they didn't give the M10 that functionality. That's hardware. The M10P got it, and that's why that's
It's like
the
a little gyroscope.
Yeah, so the
sensor.
M10P and newer is what will work with perspective control.
We didn't get there yet either, though.
Well,
the M10P, yes.
did they get a super chat?
Yeah.
What are they asking?
Does Leica Justin wants to know, does Leica manufacture their own sensors or are they shared licensed tech like other brands? Well, Leica is not a sensor company. They're working with other unnamed parties. They used to say who they used for sensor technology. For instance, the M9, the M8 and the M9 were Kodak TrueSense sensors. The M240 used a chip manufactured designed in collaboration with Leica and Semosis, a Belgian company, and produced at ST Micro, which was in Grenoble, France. And they were very open about all that. And then once we hit the M10 generation, they're like, it's a sensor. It's in there. It's good. So they're not really saying who makes it because they don't think it's relevant to the discussion. They just want to focus on the results, and the results are obviously far improved over the previous generation. So, I mean, I guess I'll take that. We can speculate, but we may or may not be right.
And it hasn't really been a factor in my photography, so
Yeah.
I don't know. We don't know.
We don't know.
We can speculate. We don't know. There's been many more questions.
There are. Let's see.
First M, where you could tap the focus point on the live view.
M10P. If you want to tap the screen, you need the touch screen introduced in the M10P. I saw someone asked about a Safari thumbs up. Match Technical does make a thumbs up. They actually make two. Oh, I guess not for the M10 Safari. Ooh. Yeah, I only have a Safari for the M240. Use a silver one. Silver one looks good. It matches the Safari accents. Like, I'll show you, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't have a silver one. No. Well, too bad. Email me and I'll send you a picture of it.
I like this question. Adishi says, after all these EVF enhancements, is there still a strong reason to use a rangefinder?
You can take that question. Why don't you start and I'll finish?
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that makes an M is the fact that you have this optical rangefinder experience. There is nothing like it. As good as EVFs might be, which I think they're very good, there's still nothing quite as intuitive, satisfying, different as using a rangefinder. You can see what's happening outside of your frame, right? So you can kind of visualize and time things a little better. There's also no blackout whatsoever because the viewfinder never gets blocked. There's no shutter. You're just always looking through it at all times. In low light situations, you don't have to worry about gain because it's super clear, bright optical finder. And I find personally, and I'm sure Josh can chime in about this as well, but I find that I shoot and compose and think about photography differently when I'm using an optical rangefinder versus when I'm using call it a mirrorless experience with through the lens VisiFlex.
To me, they both have a lot of virtue. I think it depends on a lot of things, like we always say. But if you're using a 75 Noctilux, wide open, shooting close up, it's nice to have the VisiFlex. But it also, you're slowing yourself down and you become so overwhelmed with the bokeh and and which is fine. But if you really just want to focus, no pun intended, on taking pictures, especially in the moment,
maybe the essentials,
then the rangefinder experience is unmatched because it's an unadulterated view. It's not affected by your lens choice. It's not affected by your aperture setting. It's not affected by the shutter. Nothing. I mean, you can use a rangefinder in candlelight. I mean, there's no better way to experience the photographic view of the world than through an M rangefinder, in my opinion. It's different than an EVF. It's different than an SLR. It takes practice. It's not something where you'll pick it up and immediately be Cartier-Bresson. But to me, that learning curve is part of the fun.
right?
Because it really does slow you down at first, and then you realize how intuitive it becomes.
Sure.
And you're not as distracted by minutia of like aperture and all this other stuff. So if you've never tried using a rangefinder before, please do. Rent one, borrow one, steal one. Don't steal one. Because it really is something else. It really is something else. Good question, though.
That is a good question.
I'm sure we have a few more before we go a little further.
Interesting. Kelly wants to know which drains the battery faster, the VisiFlex with the GPS enabled or using the rear LCD panel?
I don't think the GPS uses much battery at all. I've never done it side by side. I would say probably the LCD.
Yeah.
But that's a big light bulb.
And it has a backlight.
Yeah.
The actual panel inside the VisiFlex is much smaller.
Yeah.
It's magnified through optics, but the LCD panel is this, big thing on the back with a big light. So I'm going to go with Josh's answer.
If you've watched the show at all, you know I'm a battery fanatic. I've got 4 or 5 extra batteries with me all the time. So I don't shoot around battery life. I just, as I use a new camera, I figure out how much I'm going to need. And then I usually multiply that by 2, and then I bring that with me, and I'm good to go. Good question, though. I keep saying that. Well, they're good questions.
Yeah. This is true. The SL2 EVF is much better than the VisiFlex.
Yes,
It is.
that is true because the SL2 is an EVF camera
It is.
and an amazing one. at
if
that.
you've seen the size of how much that viewfinder, how much real estate it takes up on the SL2, it's significant.
Yeah.
The VisiFlex that plugs into the M is much, much smaller.
Yeah. So obviously, the VisiFlex is 5 years old at this point or more. So we hope that whenever the new M comes out, there's a new finder. I don't really know if that's going to happen. But yeah, the SL2 viewfinder is massive in terms of the amount of space it takes up in the camera. If Leica made that for an M, it would be a disaster. It would double the size of the camera. All right, let's do like one more question, and then we got to get to other cool stuff.
Let's see, Jose, do you see any good questions there?
Does the M10 gain the level hardware if you upgrade it to an M10P?
You can, if you upgrade in the upgrade program, you can add the virtual horizon, yes, or the spirit level as they call it. Yes, you can do
It's
that.
interesting because that's hardware. That's hardware.
Yeah, it's a hardware change.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Moving on.
M10P. Well, there's a few things that kind of. I guess the M10D came next, so
Yeah, let's do
gonna
that.
take this. Jose, can we please have the M10D slide?
Sure.
Thank you.
Do,
Here
do,
it
do, do.
is.
Drum roll, please. Okay.
Go.
Hold on, I'm checking it. Checking it for fingerprints.
Where is it? Oh, he's
I'm
getting the
right.
close-up.
Fingerprint
There,
here?
there it is. There it is.
All right.
Hey, there we go.
Let me move that.
It's
guy
not current
there.
anymore. It's discontinued.
All right. Well, it's almost current. So this was also introduced in 2018. It also features the same 24 megapixel CMOS sensor. It has the same ultra quiet shutter as the M10P, but unlike the M10P, it has no LCD. And this is actually a slightly refined dial here because you'll notice when we talked about the MD262, this was an ISO dial, but it's no longer an ISO dial. This is actually an exposure compensation dial, which is also pretty neat. And a combination with a on-off switch, right? So there's a reason for that, which I'll get to in a second. The reason that we don't have an ISO dial on the back is because it's an M10 generation camera. It already has an ISO dial on the top. Leica didn't see any need to change that, so that's left alone. This is now exposure compensation, which is, I think, a great feature to have on here. And why did they change the on-off position from the top to the back? Because they introduced something else on the M10D, which was kind of a unique feature. It is a lever style thumb rest. It is not a film advance lever. It will not go past this position. It has two positions, in and out. And the reason for that is it's just designed to be a thumb rest, as you were used to using on the film cameras. So when you advance your film on, say, an M7 or an MP, actually this is an MP style, you advance your film, and a lot of people would use that as a thumb rest to steady your shot. And Leica thought it would be cool to introduce this on a digital camera. So they did. It's a little confusing. I know a lot of people wanted this to be a real physical advance lever.
Yeah.
It's like,
That would have been cool, but probably totally impractical.
Yeah, they would have had to redesign the entire mechanics to make that
It would
happen.
have been $20,000.
And again, like Josh mentioned just a few minutes ago, it is fully compatible with the VisiFlex 020.
Right, so the big thing that really makes the M10D far more usable than the MD Type 262 is you get VisiFlex compatibility combined with Wi-Fi. So not only do you get live view and playback with the Leica Photos app, you can also change the settings of the camera. Because on the MD, you had very little ability to change any of the camera's internal settings because there was no screen. Because you have Wi-Fi now on the M10D, you can connect to the Photos app and change a lot of those settings
Yeah, the menu.
wirelessly. So it's super, super useful. They didn't make a lot of these. They didn't make them for that long.
In fact, we should show what that little icon is because I kind of glossed over that on the back. Let's just one more close up to Josh's point here.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to show that because a lot of people wonder how to activate that since there is no menu. And the first position here is off, the red. The second position is on. And the third position is actually Wi-Fi. So that's, or what Leica calls WLAN. So that activates the wireless LAN, and there's a little blinking light right here.
Ooh.
Yep,
So
look
fancy.
at it blinking. And I believe once it stops blinking, the Wi-Fi will actually be ready to go and connectable. and then that's when you launch the Photos app. And to show you also a little hidden gem here, to connect to the Photos app, inside the camera, let me try to get the glare gone. Right here is a QR code. So the app will ask you to scan this QR code, which normally would show on the rear LCD, but because there is no LCD, it shows on this little reflective label here underneath the base plate. So
Super cool.
It is a really interesting workaround to get Wi-Fi on the camera.
Yeah.
But it works.
M10D is fascinating.
Yeah.
And I don't know, kind of under the radar, kind of like the MD was, I think, as well.
Pretty neat camera,
That
though.
was exciting.
Because I'd say this one feels, of all the cameras,
Yeah.
this is the most analog digital.
Yes, the M10D is as close you can get to a film experience.
Feels
with
like-
a
it feels like an MP.
digital M. Yeah,
It feels
in
like
my-
an
in my-
MP.
Yeah, it's really pretty nice.
Yeah, and really, what are you changing in the menu that often? I mean, once you set up your main
Well, it depends
settings,
on what you're shooting, but yeah,
for M photography,
right. Not a lot. Yeah,
not a lot, because you have ISO control up top, you have exposure compensation on the back, and you also still have your focus magnification when you're using the EVF. You just don't have a direction pad or a touchscreen to move around the point, so it's only in the center.
Yeah.
But other than that, there's really not a lot of limitations here because of that Wi-Fi
Absolutely.
connectivity.
We're doing good. Our stream quality seems good, and of course, I showed that new Hachu cover. That's not the only new thing we're going to show tonight. If you're patient, I will show you what is inside this little box,
Which I haven't even seen yet.
but not yet. And also what's inside this box.
But not yet.
But not yet. Mystery boxes, because we're doing pretty good. It's only 9:17, so
Yeah,
we're
doing
crushing
great.
it right now.
We're doing great.
So I'm going to talk about what's next, because after the M10D, we kind of, I don't want to say took a step backwards, but kind of.
I think a retro step, right?
Just like when the original ME came out in 2012, which was based on the M9,
Yes.
even though the M240 was in production, Leica pulled that trick again in 2018 or something. 2000. Give me the ME240
19,
slide.
2019.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And came out with another ME, this time the ME240. Now, the ME240, which is here, is a 240 sensor. So the same sensor that's in the MD, the M262, MP240, M240, 24 megapixel M240 sensor. The difference is,
There you go.
here we go, it has this really, really nice sort of, they call it anthracite. It's almost like a textured, I mean, you can't feel it, but you can kind of feel, I don't know. It's really, really, really nice, super smooth. It's got silver accents. It's got this like upgraded sort of full grain leather covering, which is really nice. Now, mechanically and electronically, this is an M240, except it does have the 2 gigabyte buffer from the MP240. But you can see it has the red Leica dot. It doesn't have the script writing on the top plate. It's got silver accents, just like the original ME did. So the ME240 is the very, very, very last iteration of that 24 megapixel M240 sensor with this very unique sort of anthracite gray textured finish. They made less than 1,000 of these, from what I understand, and they're extremely rare for us to see. And I happen to really like this finish. I hope they use it again because, you know, I do think that this is really, really pretty. And with a silver lens on here, it really looks something nice. So just kind of like a little blip on the radar again, very much like the M262, produced for less than a year, really, in terms of when they actually were selling. And of course, now just continued and quite hard to find. So that is the ME240. I'm doing a really bad job at this close-up here.
There you
we go.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great.
I'm going to give everybody seasickness. Yeah, super, super, super cool. All right. Anyway,
It is a nice. I like that one.
I like this finish.
It, and I gotta say, because I'm looking at the video, but in person, the finish isn't coming across. Like versus what I see here, it's actually nicer. It's like a speckled, cool gray. It is very different than the previous ones.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's amazing. So that was a quick one because it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Next
up.
we have the M10M, which is right here. Jose, can we please have the M10 monochrome slide?
Oh, and you know what? This just had its 1 year anniversary.
That is true.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Where
Wow.
does the time go?
Away. It
Just
goes away.
a mere week ago.
It goes
I feel
up.
like,
It goes up. Away. Yeah.
All right. So what do we got here, Mr. Farkas?
This is. Should I take the lens off?
Yeah, I think that's what we've been doing.
We have been doing that.
And after David shows the M10 monochrome, I'm going to show what's in one of those boxes. But not the one everybody wants to see. That you got to wait till the end.
Oh,
I got to keep them on their toes.
Okay.
All right. What do we got? Because Kirsten will kill me if I don't show that.
There we go.
Yeah.
This
M10 monochrome.
is the M10 monochrome, or the M10M to those in the know. It is. It was introduced in January of 2020, just a year ago. And obviously the most obvious styling thing is everything on the front here. All the button surrounds, all the buttons are all blacked out.
Yeah, this is, I don't know if this is the first time we've had a black
think it
lens
might be.
release button. I think so.
I think it might be.
At least on a production model.
Yeah, that's the lens release button there. So we've got everything kind of blacked out here, even the surround around the shutter button.
And the shutter button
And the
itself,
shutter
yeah.
button itself,
Yeah.
for sure. And that follows through on the back with the engraving here. It's just not filled in. It's just engraved and left in black. So very nice, attractive package. And what's even nicer is the performance. This is the first M to be jacked up to 40 megapixels from the previous 24. We kind of were at 24 for a while there. And the M10 monochrome debuted the 40 megapixel black and white CMOS sensor specifically for this camera. And it has an expanded low light range up to 100,000 ISO, where it actually performs remarkably well. I'd say the performance envelope here is really, really, really good, up to 32,000 ISO. That's pretty incredible. I have a whole ISO showdown that I did earlier in the year where you can see how this stacks up against the previous 246 and the M10 converted to black and white, as well as the SL2. And it has a lot of the same features as the M10P. So we still got the touchscreen. We still have the ultra quiet shutter, and also the level gauge, obviously. So
Yeah. M10 monochrome was a huge surprise.
yeah,
I was actually on vacation when it came out. That's how big of a surprise it was.
and I was on a workshop.
Yeah, so we didn't even know. And when we would have guessed that M10 monochrome would have just been a 24 megapixel
Correct.
black and white,
M10.
right?
Yeah.
But with the introduction of a new sensor, we were blown away. And of course, our first assumption is more megapixels, worse low light performance.
Right.
But they went the other way. This is, I think we can both comfortably say, the highest performing low light M camera Leica has ever made, and rivals the SL2S for low light performance. Certainly
does.
higher resolution than the SL2S.
It is
while
indeed.
still
Beating his pants off. Yeah.
M10 monochrome is, I don't know how to describe it. It's like magic because
Yeah.
the M9 monochrome, great camera.
Yep.
M246, great camera.
Amazing
But
camera, I'd say.
the polish and the finishedness of the M10 with the improved rangefinder, the ISO dial, the quieter, all those things coming together and then adding in that monochrome sensor make it so usable. The files have so much shadow detail, like a
Yes.
comical amount of shadow detail. If you like to shoot black and white, this is a game changer.
We have plenty of content on this.
Yeah.
I have a whole review video with real world, shooting of this.
Yeah.
And the ISO showdown you can check out for yourself. I actually am hard at work on a new updated ISO showdown for black and white article where I compare the M10 monochrome versus the M10R converted to black and white, which we'll talk about next, as well as the Q2 converted to black and white and the Q2 monochrome. So stay tuned for that on Red Dot Forum.
It's going to be insane. There's tons of images. You're going to have the most in-depth understanding of where all
Only
these cameras-
108 comparison
108.
images.
It's going to be awesome. So I'm super excited about it as well. Let's pause for a moment, take some questions. I'm going to show some goodies, and then we're going to get to the penultimate M, of course. Questions.
Okay.
Strap lug blacked out. I wish. If you've ever seen a camera that has black strap lugs, like M6 black paint, they wear as soon as you put a strap on it. So it's like, it's a tease.
I agree. It is pretty.
Let's see. Where's Enzo? He's sleeping under the table.
Well, let's see.
Where's the Sagato? Well, unfortunately, nobody wanted to loan me one for the show. So, which reminds me, while you're looking through questions, let me quickly mention we have 2 more episodes left until our next Ask Us Anything, which will be episode 30. And we're going to do an episode all about macro, which we've been promising for like ever. And we're going to do an episode dedicated to the Noctilux. Now, if you've ever watched our show or are watching it now, you know that one of the things we really value is the opportunity to borrow some really special pieces of gear that we can show everyone on air that we normally wouldn't have access to or don't have in our own collections. So this is now a call for, if you have a Noctilux, any version, and would be willing to loan it to us for our Noctilux themed episode, we will of course thank you on air and hook you up with some cool swag.
Who doesn't love a swag bag? Come on.
This is going to be a really special episode. I'm going to work really hard on putting a public-facing comparison images together as well. So if you have any version of the Noctilux, one of the F1s, 1.2, a special version, whatever, and are willing to loan it to us for a few days, we'll cover the shipping and all that. You reach out to us or comment or something, because we would be super grateful. And I'm mentioning this now so we have enough time before we get to that episode. Because I want it to be the best episode, the best video about Leica Noctiluxes that's ever been made in the history of time.
And there it is.
So we're going to cover them all. My point is the Noctilux episode is designed to cover all lenses that have the Noctilux term in them. 50 and 75, all versions.
And we may, just for good measure, include the 90 Summilux because it's kind of sort of a Noctilux.
Kind of, sort of, yeah. So anyway, if you have one and you don't mind loaning it to us, we promise we will take extremely good care of it. David will not be allowed to touch it, so he won't drop it.
No droppies.
Anyway, enough of that. Questions?
Mike wants to know, just to reiterate, what's the highest practical ISO I'd shoot on the M10 monochrome? 32,000 ISO. Yes, that's that high. 50,000 is usable in a pinch. 32,000 is actually pretty clean. 20,000, 25,000 are insanely clean for their speed. The reason they're able to do that on the M10 monochrome is they use a dual gain architecture. It's actually the same underlying silicon technology that was debuted in the Leica S3 medium format camera. Found its way as a black and white variant in the M10 monochrome, and then in a color variant with the next camera we're about to talk about.
But before we do, I got to show one cool thing.
Oh, right.
I'm going to show a cool thing.
You did promise.
We're talking about the SNR, and then I'm going to show one more cool thing, because all this camera talk gets monotonous. So if you are like us and everyone else who works at the Leica store, your entire existence is defined by your caffeine intake. Certainly it is for me. And believe it or not, I'm this hyper
basically
all the time. Jose, for sure, has more caffeine than anyone I know. So since we are all caffeine and coffee enthusiasts of varying degrees here at the shop, we decided it was time to sort of parlay that enthusiasm into something we could share with everyone. If you remember a couple episodes ago, I showed our Lens Hood t-shirt, the legendary Lens Hoods t-shirt, which had graphical sort of icons of all of different of Leica's iconic lens hoods. Well, we had so much fun with that idea that we took it to the next level. And now...
And by we mean Kirsten.
We mean Kirsten, yes, obviously.
Our uber-talented graphic designer.
Kirsten, who's the greatest person ever, and we love you, worked really hard on our next Red Dot Wear offering in the legendary Lens Hoods line, which is...
Dun, dun, dun.
Legendary Lens Hood espresso cups. Now, I'm going to show each one. So what happens is, you get a set of 4. These are 2.5 ounce Italian porcelain. Like, these are as nice as you can get for an espresso cup. You've got the hood itself on the outside. You've got the red lettering of the hood itself, the product code of the hood on the inside. There we go, a little closer. Yes. And then each one comes with, a matching saucer. So you've got the IUFU hood, like for the 135. You've got Hold on. I
like that picture of your shirt.
You've got the Olux hood from the version 1 35 Summilux, like on the steel rim, which we've showed. Again, of course, it has matching saucer. Now, I have a note here from one of my colleagues, which says, here we go, just do not make pretend sipping noises. Now, if you know anything about me, you know that the first thing I have to do is delicious. One more. So I don't know why you wrote this note, because all you did was encourage me. Anyway, the next one is the...
You got to know what you're dealing with here.
Yes, is the 12504. This is like a 35 Summicron version 3, 2. A bunch of lenses use this one. This is a pretty iconic hood with, of course, the matching saucer. And there's only one more, I promise. Super cool. And then finally, the infamous 12466 hood for the 35 Summilux aspheric pre-FLE 20mm version 4, 28 Summicron version 1 with its commensurate matching saucer. So if you are a Leica nerd like us, if you're a coffee nerd like us,
you gotta have it.
And you want to have the nerdiest possible set of espresso cups and saucers.
Well, and when Josh says Italian porcelain, just to reiterate, because we only do things to excess here, these are actually made in Italy. Like,
yes, this is
it
legit.
Says made in Italy. These are not some cheap.
Yeah, if we're gonna
whatever.
If we're gonna have espresso cups, they're gonna be the nicest ones you can get. So
they are.
Anyway, they are available online if you want to be giant nerds like us.
And it comes in a cool box.
Yeah, you get this cool box. It actually has the 4 designs on the top here. You don't have to go with the close up. It's okay.
No, we're good.
Super cool. Anyway, enough of that. That's your little break there. Now,
but they don't come in silver.
They don't come in silver or black. This is white enamel. You know,
white porcelain.
White porcelain. Now back to the good stuff.
But that is good stuff.
I know.
That is good stuff.
David, what?
And maybe Kirsten can drop a link to that in the chat.
Yes, please do. What is the current flagship digital M?
I think it's this one that you just handed me.
Yeah. What are the odds?
What are the odds of that?
Jose, can we please have the slide?
Yes.
Thank you.
Make sure it's wiped down. No fingerprints. We got to remove all the evidence.
What was that about slurping noises? I keep forgetting. Whoever wrote that note, you're going to be regretting it now.
That's like, I'm touching you. I'm touching you. I'm touching you.
I am a child. It's okay. What do we got?
Right.
Ooh, nice.
There we go. There we go.
Yes.
Perfect.
All right. And
go. This is the current M10R. This was introduced in mid 2020. Is that right?
Yeah, this is really like 6-7 months old at this point.
Yeah, this is introduced in July of 2020. It is obviously the current model and based around the same 40 megapixel CMOS architecture that debuted in the M10 monochrome. You can't see me pointing at it, but I swear I am, except in color. And it has, again, the same shared features as the M10P. We've got the ultra quiet shutter, we've got the rear touchscreen, and we do have the level gauge. So this is the current king of the heap, so to speak, for dynamic range and low light ability of any color M camera. So this is going to better the performance of the standard 24 megapixel M10 and certainly better than prior generations. This is, well, it's the flagship of the M line right now. So basically you have, I don't want to put the M10 monochrome in the M10R slide. Let's jump to a regular close-up here. There we go. And, oh, that one doesn't have a lens on it.
Oh, no.
Now I'm going to get in trouble.
Someone's, while we were, please dispel the myth that the M10R is worse than other M's in low light because of higher resolution. Well, David, can you give us a sneak preview of what we're going to be seeing in your next article?
I don't want to give away too much, but
well,
sure.
give us a sneak preview because that's Mike's asking.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll say this because I compared all those cameras together. For those who didn't see that, we're talking about the Q2 versus the Q2 monochrome versus the M10R versus the M10 monochrome. And that's kind of the battle of the 40-ish megapixel Leica cameras. And in black and white, obviously, because we were comparing against monochrome. I can just kind of give you the brief spoiler here, but the M10R outperforms the Q2 by a decent margin. I'd say that when we're talking about max usable ISO, M10 monochrome, like I said, comes in at 32,000. The Q2 monochrome does remarkably well. It actually came in, I feel like I'm giving away the whole article here, but came out.
If you want to see the visuals,
Came
you
out
gotta read the
at
article.
25,000. And then the M10R came out, I believe, at 12,500 or 16,000, somewhere in there. And the Q2 maxed out around, ideally around 6,400. It probably could do better, but it only has, it only jumped from 6,400 to 12,000. So probably somewhere around 8,000, but
Yeah.
can't set it to that unless you're an auto ISO.
So to summarize Mike's question before you give away the whole article is the M10R does better in low light than the M10, despite
Yes.
the fact that it has more resolution.
Yes.
That's the summarize. But
Yes.
this article is going to
Yes.
be insanely comprehensive. We'll obviously post it soon, and then when we do our next episode, we'll talk about it to death, I'm sure, again.
Probably.
Because it is something that people have asked for, it's something that David has worked on extremely hard. So, yeah, be ready for that. M10R. Did you talk about highlight recovery? I missed that. What?
Yeah. Mike wants to know, what about SL2 versus SL2? Let me finish the first one first.
These are, I don't know if you guys realize, David spends
Days.
so much time, sleepless nights. So like he will do everything we want. It just takes some, because he's not going to do a comparison that isn't extremely precise and thorough, because we are talking about the performance envelope, the performance limit of these tools. And when you get to that limit, you need to be really, really careful with your technique to make sure you're properly demonstrating what it's capable of.
Right.
So we'll get there. Don't worry.
Yes. And I'd also say it's an additional challenge to compare a 24 megapixel camera to a 47 megapixel camera. When you're dealing with twice the amount of pixels, there's a large disparity. So you have to make some choices. Do you size up the 24 megapixel to 47?
Yeah.
Or do you take the 47 and size it down to 24? Because if you just compare them at native size side by side, the pictures are so disparate in size that you can't really tell. And that doesn't tell the whole story, because generally you're not outputting all the pixels. You're outputting to a certain size, which requires a certain amount of enlargement from that. But
Yeah.
I think we're getting away
Jose, can you
from
ask the
here.
question, the NXT light design question there?
Yeah,
please?
we have that one and another one that's kind of similar
Okay.
that came in before. Do you guys want both?
Start with that one, and then we'll go to the older one.
All right. On the M10R with shutter speed in A and variable ISO, how does the camera choose the combination of shutter and ISO to get the right meter reading? What is
Very-
the algorithm?
Yeah, very well. It's kind of what you would do if you were doing it yourself perfectly, which is to say, okay, I'm thinking I need to keep my shutter speed above 2/50th of a second, but I'm willing to raise my ISO up for this given aperture, but I don't want to raise it to 10,000 ISO in bright daylight. I want to keep it as low as possible while still getting my shutter speed above that level, at that level or above that level. So for instance, let's go with a bright daylight scenario. I'm going to go out, I'm going to shoot f2, or let's say 2.8, make it simple. Let's say I'm at f2.8 and I'm on auto ISO. I'm going to get 100 ISO because it's super bright. I'm at f2 or 2.8 or whatever. And I'll probably end up with 2,000th of a second or 4,000th of a second in bright daylight. Now, I duck into some lower light. I'm still in auto ISO. I'm still at f2. I still want my shutter speed to be above 250, which is what I've set in the menu as my minimum shutter speed, or maximum shutter speed, I think they say.
Yeah.
The longest time. It's a little confusing. And instead, I'm going to drop down to 250th, which is my shutter speed, except now the camera's going to be at 8,000 ISO. So it gets me the variables that I need to get a sharp picture, but to keep my ISO as low as possible when it is possible, given the light conditions, and raise me up only as far as it needs to go to get that shutter speed that I'm asking for. So that's kind of how the algorithm works. It's very smart. It works extremely well. It's what I use 90% of the time when I'm shooting with these cameras.
When you're dealing with tricky lighting or changing lighting, it's always a balancing act of those three exposure variables you have at your disposal: aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. The camera's pretty smart. in combination with some common sense when you're setting up auto ISO and understanding of aperture and depth of field, you're always going to be balancing between trying to maximize the lowest possible ISO for the cleanest image with the fastest possible shutter speed so you don't have motion blur. So it is always a balancing act there.
Sure.
Are we having more problems?
Just a minor problem.
Oh, no. That's okay.
I think we've been okay till now.
Jose, what was the other question?
Yeah, it's pretty similar, kind of. Under which circumstances would you set the shutter speed to A rather than set manually?
I mean, David and I really almost never shoot manual because the camera's auto ISO and aperture priority modes are so effective. The only time I may personally use a manual shutter speed is if I need a very specific speed for motion, either very slow or very fast, or I'm trying to do a comparison where I'm testing several cameras. Right. But other than that, I'm pretty much an A.
Yeah. I'd say long exposures at night or landscape shots where the camera can't accurately meter what you're shooting because it's 30-second exposure and it doesn't really know. So something like that.
Yeah.
But where I'm purposely trying to slow it down, like a waterfall, and I want a 1 second exposure, exactly 1 second exposure. I don't want 2 seconds or half a second. I want 1 second.
Yeah.
So manual is the best thing.
I saw a couple questions about the M10 monochrome light Wetzlar edition, if it's sold out or not. I don't really know. Leica is notorious for their limited editions to trickle out the supply over a very long period of time. And you'll get something and you'll feel like that's the last of it. And then 3 months later, one will show up. So only when I hear from Leica and they say, this is it, do I then say to someone else, this is it. Even then, sometimes you never really know. So I don't know if M10 monochrome light Wetzlar is sold out or not. Leica has not told us that it is. I'm hoping that means it isn't, but I'm not going to go ahead and promise something to someone that I can't be sure that I can get. I can't tell you a white paint pen and you can write. No, don't do that. How are we doing on stream quality here, Mr. Farkas? Are we a little jerky? Because I want
a little bit.
I want to show the last surprise because everybody's been waiting this long. You think now's a good time?
I think so. But there is a couple questions. Let's
questions. Okay.
Questions.
Let's answer a few more.
All right. Well, this is a good one, but I want to handle this first. Okay. Jim wants to know if you have the SL2 and also want to get an M experience, would you personally get an M10 monochrome or an M10R?
Well, I mean, it does depend. If you like to shoot black and white or looking to expand your creative horizons, M10 monochrome, because it's the most different from the SL2.
Sure.
Right? But I don't shoot black and white that much. I shoot a lot of car stuff, a lot of landscape stuff. Doesn't lend itself to black and white as often as other subject matters. I'd probably get an M10R. Well, I would definitely get an M10R because I like the dynamic range and low light performance of the R as a rangefinder. So black and white is not right for everyone. It doesn't fit every subject matter, and just converting images to black and white might be enough for you. You don't want to get a tool that's going to limit you unnecessarily if that's not what your objective is.
But the M10 monochrome is super nice.
It's super nice. Yeah, for street shooting, so good.
Right. So Jim,
as we always say, it does depend. But I gave it depends, and then I gave an answer. So I feel like I earned that.
You want to take your M experience and have that, I guess, the purest M experience, which some people think is black and white. M10 monochrome is hard to beat. We don't see as many used monochromes on the market ever.
Yeah.
I mean, since the original monochrome was introduced in 2012, we don't see an awful lot available used at any given time. And the reason for that is not that they don't sell monochromes. It's that the people that have them keep them.
Yeah.
Because they love them.
Yeah.
I think we might have gotten really bad. I'm seeing some yellow things flash up here. Hold on.
We're almost done.
Yeah, we're almost done.
We can power through.
All right. So
how is the dynamic range on the monochrome sensors?
Amazing. But it's all in the shadows. It's all in the shadows. We did a whole episode about monochrome, which you should watch. But the short version is expose to the highlights, protect your highlights, let everything fall where it falls, and everything's going to be okay. That's what I say. That's the 2-hour monochrome video in 5 seconds. The reporter is squirreled away. I don't have it. Sorry, because I don't think I can get any more. I don't want to tease people. We did just put an M10P white on the website for sale pre-owned. I don't have that with me. I forgot it, but it is there if you want to get an M10P white and look super classy.
Now, Dagger Boy says, is there any Oh, sorry. What? Sorry. Curvier says, is there a technical reason for the lens mount on the M10 monochrome that it's not also black?
Well,
Similar to the strap lugs, right?
yeah, that's a wear. That's like a contact part, right? So it's constantly coming
scrape off.
in contact with the lens. So yeah, you want the natural metal with nothing, no finish on it, so nothing gets abraded off into the lens mount or any of the delicate, juicy insides of the camera. So
Ooh, juicy. All right. Let's see.
yeah, what else we got?
Mike wants to know, what's your personal preference for slowest shutter, or setting the slowest auto shutter speed for auto ISO?
Well, you know what our answer is going to be.
I mean, I have my setting.
Well, it does depend on the lens you're using,
Correct.
but I will either use a 60th or 1/2f, depending on my mood. It also depends on my subject matter, because if I'm photographing like travel walk-around stuff without a lot of people, I can shoot at a 30th, or because
You can really stable yourself.
If I'm doing street shooting with people
They're
or
moving.
car stuff, then I maybe a 250th.
Yeah.
So it depends on lens, your personal stability, and your subject matter.
And one other factor you're not mentioning.
Which is?
Are you shooting with an M10, M10P,
True.
or an M10 monochrome and an M10R?
True.
The 40 megapixel variants are more demanding than the 24 megapixel variants in terms of shutter speed by, I'd say, one stop. So to Josh's point, yes, you might be able to hold steady. But if people or cars or things are moving, they're going to be blurry even if you're steady.
Yeah.
I tend on the 24 megapixel ilk of the M's to do 1/25th of a second as a good baseline, unless it's just really low light. And then I'll get by with whatever I can get by with. 15th, a 30th. But on the 40 megapixel variants, I prefer 2/50th of a second because it really, I think it just maybe it's in my head, but it just makes it seem a little crisper.
Now these are subjective assessments.
You said personally, so
But yeah, please don't take this as a rule and then live your life by it. You got to do what's right for you.
live your life by
I
it.
feel like sometimes we say things and it becomes like canon, and then it's like people are calling us out. Like, no, we're just having a good time, right?
Okay. Filter. So Roy wants to know, do you use an M10 monochrome with a filter all or most of the time, example, a yellow filter? Generally, a yellow filter is going to add a little something. I really like the orange filter. I think it's kind of a nice balance of adding some drama to it without going too far. I think for the right scenario, red filter just looks awesome and very difficult to replicate that in post-processing.
Yeah.
So for sure, color filters are extremely useful on digital monochrome cameras. On color cameras, forget it. Don't put an orange filter on your M10R and convert it to black and white and think magically you're going to get an orange filter. You're just going to get an off-color image.
Yeah.
Or if you're not a white balance, you'll just get a normal color image because the camera is going to see all that orange and get rid of it.
Let's show some cool stuff real quick.
You want to show some cool
my
stuff?
Last,
and then get
my
back to
last cool
questions?
thing. Is our stream
Okay,
coming
go.
here okay? This is short.
Let's see.
I promised. No, I guess not.
We're a little choppy.
Well, whatever. I promised that I would show what was in
we're-
this. What? Oh, we froze now?
We're
No one's going to ever know what's in the secret box.
okay. Well, thanks for watching.
No,
the,
don't.
no. You guys didn't catch the box?
Oh, don't do that to the
Oh.
people.
Okay.
Is
For
that-
real, we didn't show it
Is
yet.
it frozen? Are we
appears-
on? Could someone
appears-
tell me? I don't know what's going on.
Let's see.
If there's one thing I know for sure, it's to count on you guys in the comments to call us out.
Choppy.
Choppy. Oh, God.
Losing the internet. Show us a surprise. Video froze for a few seconds. 3 times. Wow. Video bad. All right. So we're going to give it just a second here.
We're doing great. Well, I will position this box strategically.
Ooh.
Yes.
You haven't even cut the tape yet.
On the bottom, I did.
You haven't even cut the tape yet.
I'm not going to cut the tape on the live stream. I know I'll cut myself open if I do that. Should we keep going?
I'm just going to wait for this to clean up just a little bit, and then we'll
Okay.
keep going.
I promise I'm going to show it. I'll be here all night if I have to. Just saying.
What do we say?
What are we saying?
Getting extremely choppy to the point of not understanding.
Sweet.
Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If we stop moving for a minute, maybe? Maybe.
Stay really still.
Stay really still and they can't see us.
Stay really still.
Although maybe they'll think that it stopped in front of
Yeah, that's true. We have to move slightly, but not a lot. I mean, that feed looks okay.
Yeah, it's just
In our little preview window.
Chop.
I mean, we can't do anything about
All
it
right.
now. That's fine. All right. What do I have here? Well, if you've been paying any attention, I'll talk slow if the stream is bad. If you have been paying any attention to Leica's most recent announcement, you will see that they've added another lens to their classic lineup, if you will. We started with the 28 Sumeron, then the 90 Thambar, which are reissues of original designs. And now we have the new but not new Noctilux M 50mm f1.2 ASPH. Ooh. Super cool. So they announced two versions, a limited edition in silver chrome made of brass. They're making 100 for the world, and we sold out in about 4 seconds or something. The black version is black anodized and is aluminum, and will not be limited in terms of the number they're making, as far as I know, but certainly will be limited in the sense that they can only make so many of these. This is our first one, and I am excited to show it because not many people have these yet. I'm sure a few people do, and they'll be quick to chime in on the chat about it. Whoa, this is the black one. So they redid the box to be more like a classic Leica box. And if I gingerly open the... I didn't close it very well last time I opened it. There we go. Oh, nice. Okay, so we got like this, vintagey Leica box here. It says Leica right on the front. Nice. Okay. First, we got this is like an impromptu unboxing, an aluminum black anodized rear cap. Super nice. We've got an aluminum black anodized clip-on shade. Again, this is not brass, this is aluminum. Super nice. The coolest piece of styrofoam I've ever seen in an M lens box. And that's it. No, I'm kidding, there's more. Then, the return of, pardon me, I'll get this out of the way, the Leica bubble case. A plastic
that is really cool.
lens case with
Wow.
the Leica logo on the top and on the bottom. So this unscrews. There's a piece of foam in here just to keep it from knocking around. This is basically like a back cap built into this thing. And aluminum anodized front cap as well. And I dropped it. Okay. Now I present our very first. Can we get a little more zoom, Jose? Yes. And I'll tell you what, this lens, move back a little bit, boom, is smaller than I expected. I have a 50 Summilux here, which I will attempt to get off with one hand.
Here.
David, can you get it off?
Yep,
with me? Yeah,
for
there
sure.
you go. All right, this is a 50 Summilux spheric. You can see it's really not that much bigger. It's definitely got more heft. Oh, there we go. So 50 Summilux spheric, new Noctilux. So the size is really good. It's got really, really, I don't know how many aperture blades there are, but there's a lot. You can see that there. Look at that. Sweet.
It was a lot, actually.
Yeah, there's a lot of blades. This focusing has got a nice heft to it. I mean, this is really something special. I have not done more than a couple of dog photos with it yet, so I can't give any comments to the performance. This is obviously a vintage lens, just in a new body. So this is not going to work as good as a modern M lens. This is a different animal altogether. But we're going to talk a lot more about this in the Noctilux episode. However, since this was the first one we've gotten and it's brand new, I did want to take a minute to, at the very least, reward everybody who's stuck it out with us throughout this chaotic live stream with some connection issues. So if there's any testing or particular things you want to know about this lens, leave it in the comments and I will be sure to incorporate it when we do our Noctilux episode. And if you have an original 1.2 Noctilux and you let me borrow it for our Noctilux episode, I will, make you cookies or something.
I would caution that Josh is not a very good
I will
baker.
buy you cookies. Anyway, so just a quick first glance. I'll probably have David do a proper unboxing video at some point of the new 1.2 Noctilux. All right, enough
There it is.
randomness. Any burning additional questions while I carefully and gingerly rebox this beauty?
Let's see. No, that is not tonight's giveaway.
No, you can't have it.
Okay, well, here. So we do have to clear the air here because I see there's a question from Eric Photo. Haven't seen the MTF charts, but which one has better performance, the Lux or the Noctilux 1.2? You guys got to keep in mind that is a reissue from 1966.
They didn't change anything.
They didn't change anything. The 50 Summilux Aspheric came out in 2004. This is a first M lens with the floating lens element design.
I got this.
Aspheric, exotic glass types. This is a great high performance 50. The Noctilux 51.2 is if you really want that vintage Leica look in one of the very first, I think it was actually the first aspheric lens design from Leica. And these were hand polished aspherics back in the day. 2 aspheric lens elements in there. And that was pretty cutting edge for the day. I mean, we're talking 60 years ago.
66, so
Yeah, 66 years ago. But
No, 1966 was the year.
1966. But
Yeah.
how many years? That's
I don't know, 54?
something. No, just many years ago.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a pretty vintage design, but in a modern iteration where there's no haze, no fungus, mechanically smooth. It's a reissue using. They did have to update some of the materials because some were unavailable, but always with attention to matching the original performance. So where Leica could have improved the performance or made it more modern, they wanted to keep that originality to it. So it's they call it the Leica Legacy line.
Yeah.
So that joins, I think you had a Sumeron over there.
Here.
Yeah, so that joins lenses like the 28 Sumeron.
Here we go. Out of focus. There you go. Nice.
So this is also a reissue. Earlier, this is from the 1950s, mid-50s, which was the 28 Sumeron. And the 51.2 Noctilux Aspheric joins this as well as the 90 Thambar design as well, which I think is even earlier. 90 Thambar is from the 40s?
Yeah, that was a screw mount.
Yeah, screw mount lens.
So was the Sumeron.
I thought the Sumeron was from like mid-1950s.
I can't keep track of all this.
They're old.
They're old.
54, Mark says.
Okay.
I was right.
Whatever it is. I was not alive back then, so I have no firsthand experience when they were new.
And yet, you know what? We didn't.
What didn't we do?
10:12 p.m. says you didn't address the return of the frameline lever
We
on the
missed it.
M10. Thank
Well,
you.
that answers the question. Yes, sorry.
Yes, on the M10 generation, Leica reintroduced a frameline. I'll do one. Sorry, with
What are you doing?
this one's fine. We'll show that again. The in focus would be better. Here we go. So they introduced the frameline or reintroduced the frameline preview lever. So this was on the M9 generation, and it went away for a while. Okay,
Careful
so
with that ME.
yeah, this is, well, let me just use a regular 240.
Okay.
Okay, so in a regular,
That's a monochrome. This is a 240. You are doing fantastic.
Thank you.
Here you go.
So on a regular stock M240, you can see there is no frameline preview lever over here. Not there. And it did make a return on standard issue M10. That is true. Although it's also on, for instance, the MP240 and the M monochrome 246.
Yeah.
So it's not quite fully generational dependent, but the stock M240 did not have a frameline preview lever, and the stock M10 and all variants do have frameline preview levers.
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yes. Other questions? Jose, what do you got?
All right, let's see. What are the rare frame lines? Are there 40 millimeter lines in any M body?
No. The CL, which is not really an M body, but it's
It's a rangefinder.
a rangefinder, had a 40, but that's the only one.
Because it came standard with a 40 millimeter Summicron.
Yeah, 40 Summicron.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we had a question earlier. Any thoughts on whether the 50 Summicron DR works with any digital M's?
We talked about that in our episode dedicated to 50 millimeter, which we did, I don't remember,
A while ago.
Yeah.
Ago, yeah.
Last year?
It does in any modification, you can't get the full range. But I spoke about it at length in that episode, so it should be timestamped. So I don't want to ramble on about it again, but we did cover it. So just search that. Okay, I think we can probably wrap it up here, unless there's any other burning questions. We are going to do a video episode, a video eventually. It's on the list. We're just waiting to get some other stuff. We will do it. But
More stuff.
We got Noctilux coming up. We got Macro coming up. I don't know the order yet. We got our episode 30, Ask Us Anything, and then who knows?
We've got new internet coming up.
New internet coming up. Probably not by then, but
we're working hard on that one, believe me. So thanks for bearing with us on this sometimes painful internet experience.
Come on, we did fine.
It was certainly not by our choice or our choosing. Unfortunately, we pay a lot of money for not all the service that we want. So in exchange, we get to pay a lot more money for the service that we deserve. But it's worth it for you guys, so we're doing it.
That's right, and our own sanity too.
And our own
mostly
sanity.
his, but
Mostly mine. That's right. So
don't forget about before we get
Yep.
espresso cups. Check them out. Legendary lens hoods, super cool. Thank you, Kirsten, for the design. I will slurp away.
Slurpee, slurpee, slurpee.
Yeah. Sign us off, Mr. Farkas.
All right. Well, again, our apologies for the crazy internet situation. Thank you for bearing with us. Hopefully the information was still good and informative for you. Just pretend it's a podcast and just mute the video and just listen to us in your earbuds and you'll all be all good. We will be back in 2 weeks with
either Noctilux or Macro.
depending.
It just depends on if I can get enough lenses together in time. So I'm counting on you guys for that.
Yeah, and I saw some.
Keep going.
Yeah, I don't even know if they're.
It's fine. Keep
Okay.
going.
Yeah, so thanks for the. I saw some people were volunteering their lenses to us, so thank you very much. Those are some good swag bags, so stay tuned for that.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be either doing either our Noctilux episode or a all about macro episode. Those are going to be really fun, and then we're going to be doing an Ask Us Anything for our 30th episode. So please join us for that. Be sure to subscribe to